Hey guys, so it's been a long time since I've had one of these Scisky drones on my channel. It's way overdue, and I thought I'd build another one that was uh, focused more on a budget build. And I'll have all these parts for this particular build in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. I did do an in-depth build video on a different frame. It was the Wisp frame, and that was about 4 or 5 months ago, and I'll put a link here in the corner on a card. You can click on that video if you want to go into how to build these. So these aren't very difficult to build. It just requires some steady hands and micro soldering. I'll go over how I built this particular one. It's overall weight's about 53 grams with a 500 milliamp hour battery. And the battery I'm using is this Eachine 500 milliamp 25C. And I just put it on the bottom here with some rubber bands. So I have the motors just hot glued right here. I have maybe about 2 to 3 millimeters of the bottom of the can protruding through the frame here so that the hot glue has something to grab onto. And I've crashed this a few times and seems to be holding just fine. Motor wires are just taped on with some thin pieces of electrical tape, and then they just go up here into the area of the flight controller, the Scisky board, and then I just have the motor wire soldered directly to the board here. Now this frame comes with a bunch of other parts like grommets, and there's a top plate and some standoffs, and I decided not to use all that stuff because I didn't think I really needed it, plus it was an additional weight that I thought was just going to reduce flight times. What I ended up doing was actually using my FPV backpack here for the FPV gear, and I made another video on how I made this. It's called the micro FPV backpack, and it's just a 200 milliwatt video transmitter directly soldered on cloverleaf antenna and this micro camera. It's a 600 TVL CMOS, and then I have this camera mount here, micro camera mount here, that has an adjustable tilt angle so I can tilt my camera back. Now, the reason I decided to use this particular setup here is that for all these parts, including the pololu, which is underneath here, you can't really see it. It's sandwiched between the flight controller and the FPV gear, and I need the pololu to step up the 1S voltage to 5 volts to power the FPV equipment. But this whole setup here is about $30, and I decided to go with this setup, which is about $30, versus what I used on the Tiny Whoop, which is this all-in-one camera and VTX combo. And this is about $40, so going with that other setup, you save about $10. And this one's about 4.5 grams without the case. It comes with a channel button switcher, and you can tune to 40 different channels. And it has a built-in regulator as well, so that it'll step up the voltage and also filter the video signal, so that's a clean video signal. But it is about $10 more. But it is lighter, but at the same time, it's only 25 milliwatts of power. This setup here weighs about, I believe, about 10 to 11 grams, but you get 200 milliwatts of power, plus you have a camera tilt angle here with the mount. So kind of just depends on what you want to do and which route you want to go. This is still very light. I suppose I could make this guy even lighter by throwing this FX797T camera combo onto here and save about 5 to 6 grams. So from this angle here, you can see the pololu, which I have wrapped in some black heat shrink, is directly tied into the main battery voltage here, and then it'll output 5 volts power to this FPV backpack here, which is the video transmitter and camera, and then that's also heat shrunk. The pololu is just attached to the flight controller with some double-sided foam tape here. Right there, that little white piece. And it's just this stuff right here. So you get a roll of this at the dollar store. It's like a dollar for a big roll like this. I'm also using the double-sided foam tape here to hold the flight controller to the frame, and as well as hold the FPV gear to the top of the Pololu. And from underneath. So from underneath here you can see the double-sided foam tape here on this part, and also here in the front. So to hold on the FPV stuff to the rest of this frame, I'm using this rubber band here, this smaller one that's underneath the bigger one here. Let me move this to the side. That's a thinner one that's underneath here, and it's just wrapped around the camera, and then it goes underneath, and then it wraps around to the other side of the camera, and then it actually holds this in place. It's actually pretty solid. There's a little bit of give in case of crashes. Then I have this second rubber band also going around in the same way. So it wraps once around here and then goes through and then back under and then again around this way. And I use the bigger one to secure my battery. That goes right there. So to get this tuned to fly properly was rather challenging because the PIDs that are in Betaflight 2.71 are really low for this particular frame, and I think it has to do with the fact that the frame is very small. It's only 90 millimeters, so all the motors are very close together, and it's a little bit top heavy with the camera and the VTX antenna up there. So the default PID for P was like 4.0 or 4.5. It might be lower, and the quad would just shake like this. It would just wobble over the place, and it wasn't an oscillation. It was just a wobble. And so I kept raising the P and raising until it finally started flying smoothly. And I'll put all the PIDs up here on the screen. I believe the final P for the flight video that I'm going to show here at the end is like 9, and for the roll and pitch, and it's 12 for the yaw, and the D is 45, and also same with the I. The I is like 50 or something like that. It's ridiculously higher than expected, but that was the only way I could get this thing to fly somewhat smoothly, and it still needs a little bit more tweaking. If you guys see anything in the flight video that indicates something I need to lower or increase the value, let me know. If you see something, I'm still tweaking it, but these last values, it flew reasonably well. Enough where I could control it and predictably point it in where I wanted it to go. So if you guys are building this, then I would highly recommend starting off with those PIDs instead of the stock ones, because it's basically unflyable on the stock PIDs from Betaflight. Anyway, I'm gonna roll the flight video now. Let me know if you guys have any questions about how to build this. This is pretty simple to build, and if you follow my other build video, that'll really show you how to put together the little details and the soldering and stuff, also and how to configure it in CleanFlight. The only difference in CleanFlight is that I'm using a newer build of Betaflight 2.71, and I'm also using the RC smoothing attribute that keeps the motors, they tend to run a little bit cooler than if you don't use it. It's not that noticeable, but it is a little bit cooler. So this is just going to be the first in a series of these little micro drones that'll be coming on my channel. I've got a few more of these Scisky boards coming, and I'm going to be building sort of not a budget one next, but more of a premium build, and it's going to be featuring the FX797T all-in-one camera, which is lighter and but more expensive. And I'm going to be using this frame here. It's a 3D printed frame, and I'm going to be also using the Micro Motor Warehouse Dark Edition motors, which are like $31, and I think the motors on here were like $6 or $7. So it's a pretty big difference in price. But we'll have to see and compare how something like this. And what I want to do is I want to compare like a premium build to sort of a budget build and see how well they fly, and if there's really that much of a difference. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned to my channel for some more Scisky builds are coming pretty soon, and I'll talk to you guys later.